Hey everyone, and welcome back to this episode. We are so excited to share more about Dr. Varun Gandhi. He is an amazing advocate for vegan lifestyle, for overcoming your mindset, and really claiming the stories that shape your life. You all know that I share you are only as strong as the story you tell yourself. And today he's going to dive into how that story impacts your life, your authenticity, and staying in alignment with your true purpose.
Hey, we're Britt and Chris Carmichael, and you're listening to the Elevated Life Podcast. Throughout the 13 years we've been together, we've never ceased in our endless quest to better ourselves.
We've studied top experts, philosophers, and gurus. After years of personal self-experimentation, we found the tools for shifting your beliefs, moving through fears, and developing a positive mindset.
If you're ready for a breakthrough, then you're in the right place, because we're here to empower you to take control of your life with simple mindset shifts that create radical transformation.
We'll be diving into topics like personal growth, health, philosophy, spirituality, relationships, success, and mindfulness.
So create some space for yourself and get comfy. It's time to become the badass you were born to be.
So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Brittany and Chris. Love and abundance, everyone. I appreciate it.
Yes. I love it so much. So I would love to just dive right into your story. Where'd you come from? Where are you going? How'd you get here? All the struggles you overcame, just tell us everything in 2.4 seconds.
You got it. I'm done. I just said all of it. I'm done.
I like that.
So, my story began I was born and brought up in the Middle East in Dubai. I lived there for 15 years and I moved to America 2 months before 9/11. And so this was kind of coming from, I'm Indian, but I lived in an Arab country. So coming from that background, it was a little scary at the very beginning. The first couple months I'd go to school and I didn't really want to go to school, actually. Like my whole struggle, the first struggle that I had in my whole life was that, when I was in the Middle East, I knew a lot of people. I had gone to one campus for, from kindergarten all the way to 10th grade. So it was like, very familiar environment. So when I land here, I'm like, what is this unknown place? I'm, such an oddball out in this country and in my high school. We did have some Indian folks and Black people in the high school, but not a whole lot. So it was kind of, a struggle to get adjusted to. Once I made some friends, finally, I was, accepting it. I'd remember every morning waking up for at least a month or so. And I just cry, I don't want to go to school. I complain, moan, groan about it. And my mom, I remember, she'd always tell me just go this one day, just go today. And, that's it. We'll see tomorrow, whatever happens, but just go today. And so she gave me the strength every morning to go. And for that first month, and finally, I'm like, you know what, this ain't so bad. I'm just going to go and, enjoy my time there. So that was my first struggle that I actually remember. And then, at 15. And so now I'm, living that traditional lifestyle. Hey, I'm going to graduate high school, go to college, get an advanced degree, master's. And, while I was doing my master's, I'm like, you know what, I don't know if I'm ready for that work life. So let me just do a PhD and extend my time in college. So I stayed a little longer for another 4 years. And, I was in college for 9.5 years in the same college. And so finally I graduated and I had one interview and I got the job. And I'm like, you know what, I'm excited to start this. So my whole life at this point was in Atlanta. And then I moved for this job to Boise, Idaho. Big change. I didn't even know Boise existed until I went for the interview. So that's kind of how it was for me. So I moved there, and again, initially it was a struggle. Once I made friends, I'm like, all right, now this is a great place to live, and I love Boise. If people who haven't been there, definitely go visit. It's like nature, high desert. Oh, it's beautiful. So I moved out there. Now, I moved out there for this job, right? So I was in this job for about a year and a half, about a year and 3 months, and that's when I started feeling these pains in my solar plexus. So I'm working. I wake up every morning, and then finally, about 3 months after the pain started, it was really, really strong, and I couldn't ignore it. It was bam, every morning I'd wake up, it's right there in my face, in my solar plexus. And I'm like, what is this pain? And this was a very unconscious phase in my life. I still hadn't, I didn't start meditating and all that. But something inside of me said, you know what, just sit down with this pain and ask it some questions. I don't know where that came from, but I went through this whole process of let me just sit down and ask it some questions to understand what is the message or what's behind it, because it wasn't really a physical symptom in my body. It was, it was something deeper than that. And so I kept meditating, or sort of meditation, an early form of it. And the one thing that came up was, a question was like, why are you going to this job that you don't really care about? Like, what's your purpose behind it? I felt like the difference that I was making at that point in my life was like 0.1%, 0.2% in the grand scheme of things, like very minimal. I'm like, I feel like there's something greater out there for me. And so that kind of started switching my mind from this 9-to-5 job to an entrepreneur. And first it took about a month or so to convince myself, like, okay, this is the direction I want to go in. Then it took another month or 2 months to convince my parents, because they had a strong influence in my life, that, hey, this is the direction I want to go in. Because, my dad also had has a scarcity mindset. And he also was an entrepreneur at one point in his life before my birth. And he had lost a lot of money. So he was kind of coming from that background, like, hey, be careful. Yeah, he was, watching out for me, security wise. Finally, I was like, I convinced them, like, this is the best way. They were like, why don't you look for a different job? Don't change your career, just move somewhere else or something else, something like that. I'm like, I tried it. I'm not interested. Now, at this point, I was listening to my body. So that was something new for me. That was the first time that I actually listened to my body, when I had that solar plexus pain. Going back a few years, when I was graduated my bachelor's, going into my master's, that summer break, I did an internship. Now, in this internship, it was sitting at a desk, working on Excel, looking at data, and then I'd go outside in the field and do some field projects as well in environmental engineering. Well, after like a couple months into it, I realized, like, I don't want to be doing this. Like, this is not, I had that feeling like this is not fun. Like, I don't see myself doing this for 10 years of my life. So that's one of the reasons that I extended my master's into a PhD. I'm like, I'm just going to stay in school longer, right? But then I graduated and I went back to that same job that I knew that it wasn't it for me. But I finally felt it a year and a half into it. I finally got the message, like, hey, this is done. I'm not doing this anymore. I got to find something that's like really, really appealing, really like exciting for me, because my life was very dull at that point. And so I move into this new entrepreneurship phase in my life. I leave Boise behind, move back to Atlanta. I had friends and family and everything in Atlanta. So I was like, I'll go back there and start working on something. So I moved in with my roommate. All right, now I'm gonna switch. This is all my career story. I'm gonna switch into my love life, because that was another big thing that happened there. So my last like 6 months in Atlanta, while I was graduating for my PhD, I went through a hard breakup. And it was a very rough time. There was a lot of feelings inside of me that I didn't really like, especially at the end. Like, I remember certain times where I'm writing a paper, working on something, and I'd constantly be looking at my phone, like, why hasn't she texted me yet? I just responded to her, within a minute, she's got to respond back to me. But I had a lot of feelings of like jealousy and like, like, what is she doing? A lot of like suspicion and things like that. And so I didn't really like that feeling. And so finally we decided, let's go our separate ways with a mutual breakup. So now the first couple months after that breakup, I was like 3 months away from graduation. Now, this is a time for me to focus, like really hone in and finish my dissertation, like a 200-page book that I was working on. Well, and so I'd wake up every morning, I'd have tears in my eyes, not really accepting this new reality, not wanting to, leave that old reality, which was all pleasant and, which was like really, really fun for the first year and a half. The last 6 months were kind of rough. So I remember that what happened in the year and a half, and I'm like, I don't want to let that go. But I finally was, so I'd wake up with tears in my eyes, and then I realized that, what, I have to focus on my work. I really need to graduate. So one thing that helped me was comedy. I'd watch Jon Stewart on The Daily Show back, so it kind of dates me. You can get that picture. And I really love this 22-minute segments. I mean, every morning I'd look forward to that. I'd watch it, and then I get started with my work, because that picked me up for the day. So comedy plays a huge role in my life. So now I move to Boise, Idaho. And that kind of represents that going into the darkness, going into the cave. I didn't really know anyone in Boise when I moved there, right? So I could have utilized that opportunity to really, really dive deeper into my spirituality, deeper into myself. at this point, I didn't have that opportunity. I was running the rat race, moving from the next thing to the next thing to the next thing. And I really didn't slow down my life, didn't have time to introspect, didn't have time to meditate, nothing like that, right? So now I'm going through this pain, going through a lot of the suffering. And instead of diving deeper, I distract myself. I go to alcohol, I smoke weed, I do all these things, party on the weekends, go out hiking in the nature and all that. I mean, good stuff too, not all bad stuff, but it was all a distraction. That was the end goal. Is like, I just want to distract myself away from this pain and suffering. I don't want to deal with it. About a year into it, I'm like, you know what? I'm killing myself. Like, this is not sustainable. You're drinking so much, you're eating all this unhealthy stuff. I was vegetarian back at that point. So it was a lot of dairy, a lot of, like just feeling bloated and heavy and all the time. By 2-3 o'clock p.m., I would be crashing. I had to go out for a walk. This is like while I'm working. So I'd have to like go out for a walk, take a break, do something different with my life, with that for an hour or so to wake me up. So I realized like I'm doing something different, like wrong with my life. I need to like get it back on track, and I need to have more energy and things like that. And so that's when I started cleaning up my life. But then something happened where I'm like, you know what, I have to slow down my life. And I stayed inside more. I didn't, distract myself with all these things. And I was able to really give myself that space to introspect, to really understand what's going on inside of me. And so now I pick up meditation. I moved back to Atlanta. And I started meditating at this point. And that's when things really started to unlock in my life. This was about 7 years ago now.
I have a quick question. So when you finally made that decision to like, okay, I'm killing myself, like, was there a major sign, or was it just like one day you woke up and you're like, I'm done suffering and I want to change? Like, usually people hit rock bottom to make a drastic change, like to go on the discovery of self, or to go on the journey of self-discovery. So was there something major, or was it just, I'm fucking sick of suffering?
It was just that I was sick of suffering and sick of feeling like this. I mean, to give you an idea, so there were 3 or 4 of us friends who would meet up on Friday, Saturday night. So on Friday night, we would finish a 1 liter bottle of Jack Daniels. On Saturday night, we'd finish another liter bottle of Jack Daniels. So I was like literally killing myself through all of these chemicals that are pouring down my system. And so finally, about a year into doing all of this, I'm like, I can't do this anymore, right? So that was part of it. All of that pain and suffering inside of me finally was like, I had enough of it. I needed to do something about it. And so that's when I picked up this book called The Book of Secrets by Deepak Chopra. Amazing book. Now, mind you, this is my initial phases into spirituality. So that book, like 95% of it, I didn't understand. It's a really high level book that I probably don't understand even right now. So the little bit that I did understand was meditation. Like the one thing that stuck with me through the book was meditation. And so when I moved back to Atlanta, I finally was like, you know what, I'm going to start meditating. I'm going to, create a practice where I could, make it a ritual in my life eventually. And so I got to a point where I was, I moved in with a friend. I rented a room in his apartment. And all my belongings was in that room. So what I would do is I'd sit in the corner, face the corner, so that all of my belongings are behind me. And that's how I started meditation. And I would try out different things. I'm a self-starter, so I didn't really go for classes. I Googled what meditation was. There's a lot of crap out there, a lot of bad advice out there. But there's also some good stuff. And so it took me some time to figure out what meditation is. Like, what is the purpose of meditation? Is not to stop your thoughts, not to like hold in your breath to all your, like I was trying to do that, like stop my thoughts completely. Let me try different things, but that's not it. And so I tried out different kinds of meditation, like, focusing on a dot on the wall, or closing my eyes and focusing on a point in, imaginary point. So I tried out multiple different things. And finally, over 7 years, I've like gone through so many iterations of different types of meditation. And now I'm on breath work. I'm focusing on the different chakras and breathing through each of the chakras and holding different mudras while I'm breathing. So it's like really focusing on the chakras and breathing through it. So that's where my meditation has led me.
Where would you say that meditation has benefited you the most? Is it like reducing the thoughts? Is it making you more calm? Is it not making you think about the future? Like, what is that thing where you say the days that you miss, you missed? Like where is meditation benefiting you where you're like, Oh, I didn't do it today. I can feel it. Like, where's that for you?
Anxiety. I have
Anxiety.
yeah. So that was the cell phone example was a lot of anxiety where, okay, why hasn't she texted me? And so that anxiety has been there for a long time. And meditation has helped me really calm down. And, in the face of like a challenge, I'm able to, respond as opposed to react. I would react a lot and, things would just come out without me understanding, oh, why did I do that? But now I gave that space between, the stimulus and my reaction or my respond. And so that space kind of helped me a lot. And in that sense, what happens is like every moment now, that space allows me to be aware of what's going on inside of me, right? So, for example, like 6 months ago, or maybe a year ago, I would be very nervous during this interview. I'd be sweating. And I've done national interviews. I mean, national conferences I presented there, but I would still like there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of like, camera shyness, like, fear, being in fear in front of people, where I like my conscious mind would literally go for a walk. It would take a hike and all this stuff would just come out. Like, I don't even know where it's coming from. So to avoid that, when I go on these presentations, I would have to like script everything out and just memorize it so that I don't miss a beat, I don't miss a line, I don't miss a point, I don't miss a message. And because I memorize everything, I would kind of don't have to think about anything because I'm just blurting stuff out, even though sometimes it may not even make sense to me, but I would just blurt it out. So when it comes to the Q&A part, that's when all this anxiety would come in because I don't know what questions they're going to ask. I can't script those answers. So I would always have this standard template of something along the lines like, hey, I'll get back to you. That's a great question. I'm not sure right now, but send me an email and I'll get back to you. That was kind of my standard response for any hard question. So that's kind of where it's helped me the most, I'd say.
So when I meditate and practice yoga, I find that when the thoughts slow down, it makes room for more intuitive information and insight and clarity to come through. And one of the things that I was really inspired by and impressed by your work is how an idea can become a massive movement and change the world. And one of the things I'd like to know how this idea came to be, but one of the things I love so much is that you're on a mission to feed families and children vegan meals that are underserved. And I'd love to hear more about how that idea came to fruition.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the intuitive part. One thing I use for during my brainstorming sessions is kind of clearing my mind completely and then allowing and then holding a cup, which is what I'm meditating over, like the idea or what I'm brainstorming about. That's the cup that I'm holding, and I just let it fill the cup with whatever ideas, whatever comes, so it's not like me thinking about something, it's just channeling through from the higher power. So I utilize meditation in that sense as well. And during one of those sessions is where I kind of had this inkling of an idea of like, hey, I want to start feeding people. I want to do more in the community. And so this was, early on in the pandemic, May 2020. So April 2020, I got a call from a friend, and him and I have done events together and a lot of work for the community. And so he calls me, he's like, hey, there's an organization that wants to donate funds, and they want to help the community. They don't know how, let's figure that out. And so him and I, we came up with this idea of, hey, let's prepare some grocery bags, because this was early on in the pandemic. People were losing their jobs. Losing their jobs, businesses were shutting down. So they didn't have funds to put food on their table. So we said, hey, let's provide some groceries, some supplies so that they can go home and cook the food. And so we provide pasta, rice, some basic supplies. And then about a couple of weeks into it, we realized, hey, we asked ourselves, like, could we be doing more? Are there other folks out there who are not getting fed? And then we realized a lot of homeless people too, living out on the streets, and they don't have any source of, food, any meals or anything. So we kind of expanded into providing cooking hot meals too. We had a kitchen as part of our facility, a pretty big size kitchen. So every Sunday we started cooking, we started with 100 meals, 200 meals every week. And about a month into it, we got up to 1,000 and then 1,500 meals. And so currently we're doing about 1,500 to 2,000 meals every Sunday. There's a little backstory behind this. So I was in India in February 2020. And this was right before the pandemic hit. And I went out to a little town where I was scheduled to visit that town because I had some family there. But then when I visited, my family was like, hey, I have this a jyotish, like a guru who can read your fortune and, kind of help you if you have any kind of questions. So I said, you know what, because you brought it up, I want to meet him. It was like meant to happen. That's why he brought it up. So I said, let's go meet him. And so he takes me there. And I tell him like, hey, I'm working on this meditation studio, the same facility where we prepare the meals right now. I had a meditation studio out of there as well. And I was just telling him about it. And he said, you know what, as part of it, why don't you start offering some free meals? Just cook meals, let people come, they'll eat the food, and then you can do meditation with them. That'll be a perfect way. So that's kind of like the seed that he planted. And then in April 2020, so then I land here in March on a Monday. Thursday, everything shuts down. And then in April, I get this call. And so I kind of like connected the dots. I'm like, you know what, it has to be something related to food and preparing hot meals, because that Jyotish in India had planted the seed. So that's how this started. And then I realized as we were going through, cooking these meals, the way we do it is we're basically a kitchen. We prepare all these meals, and then we have partnered up with different organizations that pick up these meals from us and then take it out into the community and distribute them. So we were talking to these different organizations, and I realized that one of the bottlenecks for them is because before us, what they would do is they would have to prepare the meals, cook all of it early in the morning, and then go out and deliver both. They'd do both. And when they found us and when we found them, they were so relieved that, hey, we don't have to cook the meals. The meals are available to us. We can just focus on distributing. And on our side, we said, we don't want to focus on the distribution part, but we have this kitchen, we have the volunteers, we have all the resources. Let's just focus on cooking these meals. And so I created and established relationships with these different organizations. And over the course of the last 2 years, we probably partnered up with about 30 different organizations. And we're approaching, this week we'll hit 200,000 meals in the last 2 years.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
You bring up a really incredible point. You don't have to know it all or do it all to make a huge impact. There are so many corporations, companies, people, brands that want to partner up, that the thing that you want to offer might just be that thing that they absolutely need. So I love that you have shared that with us, that you had a kitchen and a space, but didn't have maybe the capacity to do all the delivery. And I think that's so important for our listeners to hear, that just because you have this like insane, I'm going to change the world idea, which they're coming through more rapidly, doesn't mean you need to be worried about the how or the fulfillment. It's just taking the action and having the courage to follow that seed, or to allow that seed to grow and to take root, and to see what gets offered, the opportunities that present along the way. What would you say? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, when we first started, like, kind of along your point, when we first started, we didn't know that we were going to be here serving 200,000 meals. We just got started and we're like, okay, let's do it for this 1 week. That's how it started. Let's just do it for 1 week. We'll see what happens. And then we said, okay, I'm talking about the grocery part as well. We just came there for that 1 week. And then finally we was like, there's a need for it. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. And every time we would reach out to the community for any kind of resources, they would be there. People would come, they would volunteer. They love what helping out and giving their time or resources or money. And anytime we had needed something, we just call people up and we're like, all right, here you go, here you go, here you go. And it's been amazing. It's been such a great journey of understanding how the universe works too, like, how all the energies around us work. And I've been able to see that through this project.
The big deal here that I think is really important, something that Britt just touched on, is that, like, none of us are really that smart. I know we have like big egos and we want to be like, we are the masters of the universe, but we're really not that smart. We're just not. And the problem is that when you think a thought, it's typically something that you've already read, or something that someone's already told you, or you heard on TV, or something like that. It's rarely ever an original idea. But when you sit in silence, new ideas come up. And they don't come up because a lot of people, oh my gosh, I remember we were doing a talk with a bunch of people who are way wealthy. I mean, we're talking about like dumb wealth, and we're sitting in their backyard, and it's the house we pulled up, and I was like, holy shit, dream house. I mean, it's like a castle, but like a farmhouse castle, just beautiful. We're out there, we're sitting in the backyard, pool, all these people are there. It is amazing. And the guy's asking me what I'm doing, and I'm, what I do. And I'm talking about meditation. I'm talking about hypnosis, doing some of the different stuff I work on. And he's like, yeah, I would never do that. And I was like, Well, how come? He goes, well, I'd rather just sit down and think all day. I'd rather be thinking. And I thought, man, you're missing out so much on life, because almost every great opportunity I've had in life, not that I didn't want it, but it's that it came to me through some sort of moment of silence. When you look at how Apple was created, when you look at how Google was created, they were through LSD drug experiences. So, I mean, you're talking about they're in altered states. It's people oftentimes, and the best music that we have comes from an altered state. I mean, the person they're in the zone. And a lot of people don't realize that often that's what we're talking about when we're talking about meditation. You get into a different brainwave state. I mean, you're relaxed in a different way. And so ideas just start to flow. I find so many entrepreneurs and people who've just been banging their head against the wall, and they just keep doing that. Well, I'm just going to think harder. I'm just going to work harder. And oftentimes it's a surrendering aspect that allows you to really manifest sort of like what your passion is, what your purpose is. And it comes in waves. When we first started out and doing online stuff, it was me sending Britt quotes, inspirational quotes. This is before anybody was doing like inspirational quote stuff. And I was just like, I see too much negativity online. It's too much crap. So why don't I just start sending you quotes? I'll look up some quotes. I'll send them to you. It'll be cool. And then Britt was like, well, I'll start posting them to my Facebook people, just so my mom and my grandma can thumbs up it and that kind of thing. It was small. We didn't want to have an online anything that wasn't, we'd already been successful. We were already doing successful things. And then we had people reach out and say, that thing that you said the other day really made a big difference in my life. I was super struggling. And I got online and I saw what you posted, and I was like, and you're talking about this is, 12 years ago, a lot of years ago. So it's not like quotes became a thing eventually, but originally nobody was doing that. Just like when we first started talking about yoga, like nobody was doing that. We were just trying to find ways to sort of get out of our mind. And it seems like your journey just sort of overlaps all of that, because it's you have to get out of your own mind. A lot of times you have to get out of what you thought you were going to do in life, even like you spent a lot of time doing it. You're a scholar. I mean, you spent a lot of time in the textbooks. And even when you spend a lot of time in something, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a business, whether it's an idea, whether it's in anything, that doesn't mean you can't scrap it and find something that's 10 times better for you, or something that will just really align with who you are at this point, because the school thing probably worked really well for you back in the day. I mean, it's probably exactly the mission that you needed to be on. And just like giving up all of that is part of your mission too. And I think a lot of people are afraid that, well, I've been doing this for so long. If I scrap it, then it's like my life is going to be over. Like I'll just fall dead the moment that I give it up. And that's not true. There's so much beauty in things in life, but it takes us getting quiet for a minute and us not being, I love your idea of sitting in the corner and then putting everything behind you. Like that's clever. Like that's really, I hope everybody picked up on that, because that is a very clever way of looking at things and being
or not
blank.
Looking at things.
Exactly. Being blank and realizing that when people do teach meditation, there's a bazillion techniques. You have to find the one that works for you. And it means trying new things, and it means struggling, and it means like you're going to be frustrated some days, and just keep at it. There's so much benefit to meditation. There's so many people who miss out on that. And it's definitely one of the key components to life, and to really discovering not just who you are, but how you want to interact with the rest of the world.
So I like how you said that everyone has their own kind of meditation, or, different people like different kinds of meditation. That's what I found too, is, meditation is not just sitting there and, doing Om or whatever that may be. It could be going out for a walk, but you're completely, just engrossed in what's going on around you. You're not thinking anything, right? And that's the form of meditation as well. So I feel like, experimenting and finding the one that really resonates with you, and then keeping at it.
I agree. And Varun, you are the definition of courageous. To leave behind your home country to go to Boise, WTF. I mean, like, what in the world? But just to put yourself in a position, even though you didn't ask for it and you probably didn't want it, but you were, and that is your story and your makeup. So courage is built into your makeup. What advice do you have for people who maybe are living someone else's life or climbing someone else's dream corporate ladder? What advice do you have for them to make a courageous move to say, you know what, I'm not going to follow this path anymore? Because you went down a deep path of education and you had to make a courageous shift. So what is that advice that you would give to those people who are living someone else's life, but want to live more authentically? How do you make that transition?
The thing that's worked for me has been taking baby steps. So when the switch from vegetarian to vegan, so my wife did it one way. She went cold turkey. One day she decided, I'm going to go into my fridge, take everything out, go to the store, buy all the vegan stuff and replace everything, right? I did it the other way. I said, okay, I'm going to work on cheese first, milk next, take one out of my diet at a time, and then finally get to the point. So it took me about 3 to 6 months to actually get there. But when I got there, it was more sustainable for me. And so I feel like taking that baby steps, moving slowly in that direction. When I first started meditating, I didn't go out to meditate for 15, 20, 30 minutes. I said, you know what? I'm just going to meditate for 5 minutes. That's all I want to do. Some days I couldn't even make it there. My phone was the only distraction that was left outside of all the other stuff. So what I did is, I realized, like, initially when I first started meditating, sitting down for 5 minutes, I said, I would start meditating, and then I'd be like, has it been 5 minutes yet? So I look at my phone, it's only been 20 seconds, right? And so that started happening. So that was also another form of distraction for me. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna put a 5-minute timer on my phone and set my phone a little bit far away so I can't reach it, instantaneously. And so this way now I've removed all of my distractions, including my phone, and I put my phone to good use so I can actually, think about, have the time on it, so I don't have to think about that. And this way I was able to kind of relieve all of the other things and then really just hone in on the thing that I want to focus on, which was that meditation. So yeah, I think taking baby steps.
I think it really kind of ties back to the lesson that you learned so valuably from your mother, is just one day at a time, one step at a time. Everyone wants to know what step 10 is, and they don't even take step 1. But the truth is once you take step 1, you get the clarity of what the next step is. And we get stuck in this cycle of being afraid to step outside our comfort zone. So I love that advice on baby steps.
Yeah. And the other big thing the theme that I'm noticing too, and it's a theme with most success stories, is that once you develop awareness, you start being aware of what the answers are that other people are telling you. A lot of times when you're constantly distracted, you're constantly in your own head, then you're only hearing your own voice. It's like the record player just continues to go. And so you're not getting the good information. So many people are looking for a miracle, but have closed themselves off to listening to other people. Maybe it's because it's your sister. Maybe it's because the person who brings you the mail. Maybe it's because, but those are the people who always have the answers. And it's going to be in weird little conversations. It's going to be you talking to that person at the grocery store that's behind you while you're waiting in line because they only brought in 2 cashiers today. And so you're sitting there like, so what's going on? And they end up talking to you and they give you that idea. Just like you're talking about going to the guru and having that seed planted in your mind. You're like, holy smokes, that was the answer I was looking for. Like, how did I not think of this? It's so obvious. And the answers too are always going to be really obvious answers. It's never something that you couldn't have come up with on your own. It's just that you hadn't either discovered it or you hadn't brought it fully in to integrate with yourself. And I think it's amazing that you've had the awareness to follow out on these dreams and these ideas, because a lot of people hear them, but it either passes in one ear and out the other, or they don't ever take any kind of action.
Or they do it for a desired expectation on the outside of it. Like obviously your desire to feed people is the desire, but it's of like positive contribution to the community, not like I'm going to do this and make $1 million. Like we chase the end result that isn't fulfilling rather than just allowing what naturally fulfills us to unfold.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Man, I love it.
Yeah, I mean, that's it's been a fun journey, learning a lot through it, and I just can't wait to see what else is in store for us.
Well, obviously, we can only predict the future as much as we create it, but what is in store? What are the next projects or things that you're excited about working on, or what do you feel called to create at this time?
I recently moved about a year ago. I moved to this city called Whittier in California. It's about 12 miles east of LA. And in this city, I mean, it's an amazing, it's got a lot of great energy. It's got some plant-based options. And I feel like what's missing in this city is kind of like that, like a wellness festival, monthly wellness event, 3-4 hour kind of thing where we do yoga, meditation, have some vendors spreading consciousness. I feel like that's missing. So I want to create that for this community. And I mean, it's open to every city around it, but I want to kind of incorporate that into the city. So that's one thing that I've been working on. Another thing is this idea called What's Your Story? And it's also a podcast that I'm working on as well. The idea is that at every moment of our lives, we're creating a story in our minds, right? It's like, I think the perfect analogy is the way it happens. And this is like a mechanism that works in our life. And, when we're sitting in a movie theater, the analogy is that when we're sitting in a movie theater, watching this movie on the screen, and we see the screen. A screen is a tool. There's a projector in the back, which is also a tool. And inside of the projector, there's a film. The film is actually what contains the essence of the movie, right? All of the contents of the movie. The other things are just tools. And so in our lives, we have a projector right here, our third eye chakra, which is our imagination. That's projecting all of these different images onto the different screens in our lives. The screens are the people, the places, the situations, experiences. All of those are the different screens. And there's a film that's inside of us where we're taking all of this data, we're taking all of this information, and then using it into our imagination and projecting all of these stories. And so in this analogy, What's Your Story does, that course, is to allow us to recreate that film that's inside of us. We're going into our past, writing all of our memories, writing all of our experiences, writing all of our past history that has impacted us in positive ways and that have impacted us in negative ways. Capturing all of that down and then going through an exercise of gathering insight, like understanding how each of these experiences have played a role into who we are today. So that's kind of like that logical tool of, I'm that engineer kind of breaking things down for people. So this is a tool that I've created. It's called the My Life Film. You're essentially creating your life film. And it allows you to understand your past, the influences of the past, and then help you create a better future for yourself. And so this is what the idea of What's Your Story is.
It's incredible because doing so much hypnosis work with people, you realize how powerful the subconscious mind is. And this is sort of that memory bank that you're talking about. And I feel like so many of us don't realize that we can readily change it. Like there is change that's available at every minute to allow you to start immediately living a new story. I find so many people who define themselves in certain ways and they only live out that. They have these big hopes and dreams, but the story they keep telling themselves doesn't paint them as the hero. So they don't live as the hero. It's like they book themselves into this character that they decide on and then want to change it, but have no tools to be able to really be able to do that. And it's incredible that you've tapped in this exact same thing. We are all overlapping here. There's so many people saying similar things, but in different ways. And I think it's the same way we're talking about meditations, where you've got to find out what jives with you. You've got to find out what wakes you up in the morning, makes you excited to be alive and to be out doing things again. And I love that you are helping people rewrite these things, because that's going to impact the self-image. That's going to impact self-esteem. That's going to determine how good of a relationship that's going to decide whether or not you can even approach at that interview, whether you can get up on stage, whether you can have the person that you want to be with who loves and adores you and all those kind of things. But if you don't feel like you deserve it, no matter what, you won't get it. It won't matter.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's all of them are different tools to raise our consciousness. And that's the game is. It's like understanding where you're at and then finding ways to raise it. And it's like, every person, every conversation that we have, like you mentioned, Chris, is a universe sending us a message. Like, this is the message for you at this moment. And a lot of people are too caught up in their minds that they're not aware of the message. But then there's some of us that are able to pick up on it and then take action accordingly.
Yeah. I think it's really incredible to have these conversations with other enlightened souls who are waking up to that soul mission of like, let's contribute, let's make a difference. We're not being fulfilled by the traditional means of culture and society. We're being fulfilled by things that connect us with people, that make us feel seen, that make us feel heard and loved, and like we matter. And I think really understanding what your story is gives a blueprint to discover who you authentically are. And once you know and can answer that question, who am I truly believe that's when you'll find freedom and true inner peace.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. It's right behind that. It's whatever that tool is, if it's meditation, if it's yoga, whatever that may be, find that for yourself so that you can unlock all of the treasures that lay behind your mind.
So true. And that's exactly what we do inside the Elevated Life Club, is provide different tools of yoga and meditation and mindset hacks so that people have options, a tool bank to pull from, because sometimes that beating everything out with a tennis racket isn't appropriate in line at the, in the customer service line. You might look a little crazy and you might not have a tennis racket. So breath work and breathing to move that energy and anger could be a better tool. So it's so important to open yourself up to all the different modalities. And I love that you've gone on this exploration journey. I'd love for you to share, just to wrap up, any other tools that you've created or things that you'd like to share with our community to help them find who they really are.
So a couple other things. The course is kind of the mental work. We have other physical products that help your physical body, and it's called the Miracle Food Bundle. And essentially, it's a combination of our Miracle Food superfood oils. It contains of 5 different superfoods combined, and essentially what that does is it removes toxins from the system. It starts cleaning up your body. Inflammation, mucus, all of that stuff, it starts removing from your system. You combine that along with our Miracle Tea, which is a combination of 9 different herbs, all combined into one tea bag, a big tea bag that will last you 2 weeks. So this whole regimen is a 2-week regimen. In the morning, you wake up, take a 30 ml shot of the Miracle Food, take a 8-ounce drink of the tea, eat a fruit, drink some water, and while you're doing that, if people have like some sort of ailments that's not your regular cleaning out your system or diseases, then we would recommend combining it with our Eden's Garden recipe book, which is essentially a raw plant-based recipe guide, contains 30 breakfast, lunch, and dinner recipes. And so and then along with that, there's a affirmation Bible, which is a kind of a game that we've created. 400 affirmations, 20 affirmations per page, 20 pages. You roll a 20-sided dice and you get an affirmation for the day. And that's kind of like something that you run through your day with. So this is a Miracle Food Bundle that has helped a lot of people. Along with that, we have some other mental tools like affirmation posters that are right behind me, a couple in front of me, and that's the 2 in front of me and help me in my interviews, keeping me calm. One of them says "Be you," and it has a meditative man sitting, and then the other one that says "Express yourself." So that's kind of like helping me express my true, authentic self. So these are some of the things that that we've created. You can check it out on our website, drvarungandhi.com. Or you could follow me on Instagram at the same name, Dr. Varun Gandhi.
I love it. It's so important. I think that people realize that it's not just one trick that gets you there. It's not just working on the mind. It's not just working on the body. It's not just working on the spiritual aspect or the financial aspect or the relationship aspect. It's combining all the methods together because, you don't want to just live half a life. You don't want to just be in one part. That we are in a material world, and there are some wonderfully fun things to do here. And at the same time,
each other.
I see. And we are in a spiritual world, and there's very amazing things to explore there. I just want to tell people that there's so much that you can do and so many different ways to do it. And it's important to begin to work on, even if you take small steps, which is the way. It's always the way because it's the most sustainable. That's why small steps is the best. Is because if you take big leaps, a lot of times you fall, and then you're mad, and then you're back actually worse than where you started because you're frustrated. Yeah. Because you're exactly where you were, but now even more mad because whatever you tried didn't work. And a lot of times what people do when it doesn't work is they feel they're the failure instead of maybe the technique or the way they applied the technique, or that technique at this time in my life wasn't it. I think it's amazing what you're doing. Britt was big on like, hey, we've got to talk to him. You're going to love him. And you know what, man, I do. Your vibe is so amazing. It does not surprise me at all, the moves that you've made. I'm so glad you've overcome the anxiety and everything, which is something big I'm always trying to get people to do, because like we need everyone's gifts. I mean, there are so many talented people on here that just forget it, and then they don't share it, and then we don't know it, and so we don't benefit from it. And so you stepping up to the plate and saying like, look, I'm here. I may as well make the best of my life. It's not exactly the way I thought it was going to turn out. I've gone on this cooler direction because it's better. It's better on the cooler direction once you start figuring out. And I'm super thankful to even have met you. I love being around. I mean, you got chill vibes. I mean, it's super relaxed, super calm. I love it.
Thank you so much, Chris. I really, really, really appreciate all those kind words. And I'll tell you what, it's been a work in progress. It's taking baby steps in the right direction every day, and tapping into my feelings, making sure like, hey, is this, listening to my body, is this how I want to feel? And I think that question has helped me transformed my life, like in terms of food. After eating any kind of, even veganism has a lot of processed foods and, soy products and wheat gluten and all that. So after everything that I've introduced into my system, I kind of track it, like how does it feel in my body, and make sure that, okay, do I want to feel like this again? If the answer is no, then I just eliminate that from my system. And that's been my game thus far is, what do I not want to feel like this? All right, let's remove it.
I love it.
That is such a great question. And it also aligns so well with our 7 or above philosophy. If it doesn't feel good, it's got to go. So that leads us to end our conversation with the question that we love to ask. What does living an elevated life mean to you?
Living an elevated life. I think it starts with awareness, like self-awareness. So understanding how we behave in all these different situations, especially the pressure situations. And I think that's where we can live an elevated life, because you pay attention to yourself. I'll tell you, I'm a new father. I have a 1 month old, and
a baby now.
Congrats!
Yay.
Thank you. And so I didn't know that when he cries at 3 a.m. that I'd react a certain way. So I had to go through this experience having a baby to understand. Oh my gosh, there's so much frustration inside of me when I can't soothe the baby at 3 a.m. So I feel like putting yourself through these new experiences, like Chris mentioned, and understanding how do you behave, and then being aware of it, right? So that you could start removing things that you don't want to feel like. I think that's the elevated life for me.
I love that. Elevated life is awareness, and awareness is the gateway to change. So that's what we're here. Enlightenment is really total saturation in love. And without awareness of where the shadow is, we'll never see it. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. Is there any last words you want to share with our community?
Yeah, so we're fundraising for our little meals project. We have about 30,000 left.
100,000 little.
And so we have a GoFundMe link that I'll send you guys as well if you'd like to put it in the podcast.
Absolutely.
But essentially, the way it works is, so each meal it costs us about $1.50. We have 50% of the funds being donated to us by one organization called the Joy of Sharing Foundation. So essentially, whatever donations we get, your funds are going to be matched by another organization. Wow. And so for $15, you would feed 10 people, but being matched by another organization, you'd actually end up feeding 20 people. So I'd definitely encourage anyone who's interested in donating. Also, if you're in the LA area, anytime visiting, or you live in the LA area, please stop by, come by to our drive. We would love to have you. I'd love to show you around. If you're interested in volunteering, we'd love to have you for that as well. We're trying to, incorporate as many people as we can into this. So, and thank you guys for helping us spread the word.
Yes.
Absolutely. So everyone skip your Starbucks this week and donate to people in need. This is such a beautiful mission, and we're so grateful to elevate it and shine a spotlight on it. So thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate this opportunity. Love and abundance.
Yes. I love that so much.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Elevated Life Podcast. Want more? Join us at theelevatedlifeclub.com for mindset upgrades, lifestyle hacks, and spiritual tools to elevate your soul.
Each month features a new masterclass, meditation, yoga practice, and more to help you transform your life one step at a time.
Come join the 7 or Above Club.